Welcome, everyone, to Office Hours, where we answer your tech and media production questions every day. A little bit special, Ryan Rademan, coming in from Chicago, has something special to show us this morning regarding v0.dev. Ryan, what's up?
Good morning. We are going to be looking at an AI code gen tool today. And it's really simple, so we're just going to kind of flip right into it and do kind of a one-shot prompt. And as a note for our viewers, just use the chat. So if you're in Makana and you use the chat, you don't have to use the Q&A. Just use chat. We're watching it. This is just going to be for the first video. So if something you want to add or ask, just throw it into chat for now for this open. So go ahead, Ryan. Sure thing. I'm going to switch over to my screen here. You can see I'm just at Google here, but I'm going to go to v0.dev and launch this. This is made by a company called Vercel, so I'd recommend you check out the parent company, but they're kind of a maker of tools for building and deploying websites. What's the design for V0? What's the intention? The intention is similar to way in Claude Artifacts, you can prompt it to build something, to write code, but in this case, you're going to see that code rendered in real time and be able to interact with it in a little bit more detail. So we were talking over the last few weeks about grant writing and crowdfunding for office hours, and so I thought that might be a good prompt for us to throw in here to say, build me an example of a crowdfunding site we can use for our community called Office Hours Global. Dark mode, please. Please. Got to be nice, or it'll give you a bad website.
Yeah, you don't want to get it mad at you at the start.
Yeah. So you can see it responding, and then you'll start to see it actually generating code. And something that is different between this and Claude Artifacts is the ability to generate multiple pages instead of just a single page. So you can see a directory structure launched there.
So it's building the entire website.
That's right. Now, Claude Artifacts can do that, ChatGPT can do that, but it would be limited to a single page, and that really limits the functionality in the way that you can edit the thing over time.
Right.
And so, too, if you have certain things you want to see changed, you can actually click into these code files and edit them, or you can delete files, or you can create new files. So you've kind of got an IDE, and I would say in another 5 seconds or so, we're going to have a functioning visual here.
And you didn't give it any other information. You just asked it for that information.
That's exactly right. Just a one-shot prompt tends to do the trick, and then it's going to produce for us a visual as long as the live demo doesn't fail, and then we'll be able to ask it follow-up questions. Now, one thing that I'd recommend if you're ever doing a live demo, and here I'm going to switch back because it's generating. Okay, we got something. Is, sometimes you can say, be quick about it, be concise, right? You can kind of dictate the degree to which it cooks, so to speak. Based on your prompt. So, I'd say that was 30 or 45 seconds. And right away here, we've got this. Now you can see we're missing images. So I've actually got a fun little trick to get the images in there. And I'll do that. And then after I hit this prompt, I'll say, use lorem pixum to populate images and move those to be square on the left side of each card. So this will just really visually clean this up. What other questions do we have?
Do you know what the code base? Do you know what the code base is for this? I mean, what is it? What is it? Is it its own model, or is it somebody else's model?
It is definitely a model that has been post-trained on a couple specific additional things beyond just what Claude or ChatGPT's models are trained on. Mm-hmm. And some of those things include ShadCN, which is actually an icon library and a layout library, so it can kind of more readily know about components. And then it's also trained on something called Next.js, which is a library built on top of React. And React is just a very modern open source platform for web development that's really easy to read and easy to look at.
And so they took whatever model they had, and then they add that lots and lots of documentation for those specific verticals. So if you're developing within those certain verticals, it's got a lot of information to base its code on.
That's right. So if you were generating if you were looking to build something out in a more obscure language, I would say it'll do at least as well as the typical big foundational models that one likes to use. This thing got hung up, so I'm just going to hit refresh. And, in the event that it in the event that you're looking at React or something like it, you definitely have, I'm just going to say, take the images out.
And Aaron Huselage says that it's a distillation of Claude. It generates Next.js and Shade or Shade CN code, or Shad CN code.
Yeah, Shad CN is that library that has all of the components to make it kind of more visually appealing.
Got it.
Ryan, has this been particularly difficult to get your head around? Has it been an easy learn for you? And I know you have experience in this, but how complex to operate would you say it is?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it on yesterday's show, and I had a couple people pinging me asking, hey, if I want to get started with, let's say, just experimenting with writing apps for the web, should I use Cursor or should I use V0? And there were a couple limitations of V0. For example, it could originally only do single-page web apps, and it wasn't allowing you to delete files or edit those files in the folder structure. That's what would tend to drive a person up to Cursor.
Cursor does something similar, and Cursor is kind of the industry leader at this moment in time. As in this
nose in front of the race.
Cursor is kind of this week in Cursor. This week in AI, Cursor is the leader in what people are using for generating websites with their with AI. And so what this is, but this is an up and coming one that's, you think, better, the same, different?
This is more rudimentary and much easier for beginners. So Cursor, you're going to want to probably be, you're going to be running that locally as a desktop application, where this is something that's happening totally inside the browser. Mm-hmm. Cursor is native to VS Code, and so when you think about managing the code base, you need to be thoughtful about Git, or where the code is actually living. And then the most impactful component of this tool set is the ability to deploy. So I joked about this, meme of, if your friend says, "Oh, cool, you built something, send it to me," and it's locally on your machine, and you send them the local address, like, they're going to laugh at you, if they've got any skills. In this case, we've got a one-click to deploy. And so if I add it to a project and I add this to the office hours system, I can click confirm and deploy. And now within a matter of 30 seconds here, I'm going to actually be able to drop a link into our office hours chat. And everybody is going to be able to do two things. It'll actually produce two links. One of these links is the working version of the app. The other link is basically like sharing a conversation in ChatGPT, where you can see my prompt history and click a button to fork it and pick up where I left off and go, build on this too.
That's pretty powerful. Content.
That is the biggest difference between the experience one's going to have in Cursor and the experience one is going to have in V0.
And Aaron said, I used V0 to generate the UI for an app and then took the code to Claude to do the back-end integration. Brett Ballou said, in my experience, V0.dev is great as a prototyping scaffolding tool, but falls short at being a complete solution for production-grade applications without substantially modding and improving the code base. So those are some, from our viewers, some feedback on V0. It's incredible to watch. I mean, I think that we're going to keep on showing you these things and Ryan just posted in the chat. He just posted the link to the app that he built, so you can check that out there. And the second one is so the first one's the discussion and the second one's the app.
That's exactly right. The first one will let people build upon what it is that we were demonstrating. And so, then the last thing I'd really kind of like leave the audience with, I don't know if anybody threw any like feature requests in there, and obviously we'd need to let it cook for a minute, but that ability to just continue to converse with it, like we told it to get rid of the images, but we could tell it, like, we like the color blue. And another fun example here is, of course, uploading, right? This is a visual model too. So you can upload a screenshot and say, here's my logo. Throw that in the upper left of header bar and collapse the header bar menu items into and again, try and just maybe one step at a time. If you give it 10 or 12 or 14 instructions, no harm in that. It's just going to really end up cooking for a more
well. And do you find that it's
time.
better to go incremental? So when I'm building code right now in either Claude or ChatGPT, one of the things that I find is it's better to say, I want something simple. Now add this. Now add this. Now add this. And if it needs to, if I give it a full spec of what I want, oftentimes it's more likely to hallucinate or give me something that I didn't want. Whereas I refine the things that I want and then have it add details on top of it. Do you find that that's the case for this?
Yeah. And, something that's being discussed right now is the difference between these reasoning models and the more agentic models and the more rudimentary models, right? So if you're looking at the OpenAI portfolio, OpenAI's 4.0 model is just one that you're better off iterating with. If you're looking at the 0.1 model, it's something that's better off with more context and you really trusting it to go off. This is kind of somewhere in between. So I've definitely, during yesterday's show, we put in a big prompt with a lot of detail and that threw it off and it tried to do too much and it caused an error. And so then in testing yesterday afternoon, I tried a crazy simple prompt and was shocked how close it got to the mark with way less direction. So sometimes less direction is actually better. Yep. But the really cool part is if you drive this thing into a wall, and this is a big difference between V0 and Cursor as well, there is an undo button where you can revert to the previous version and restore that version and get yourself right out of the trouble that you found yourself in by pushing it too far.
A question from Ryan Thompson. Ryan, did you say upload from Figma in one of those dropdowns? Did you say upload from Figma in one of those dropdowns?
Yeah, I did not upload from Figma. I uploaded an image. And so what's cool is you can screenshot a web app that you like and say, this is a visual aesthetic that I find pleasing and I would like you to emulate, and it can do that. Now, if you connect it to Figma, remember, it's getting a heck of a lot more than just a visual. Figma has all of the metadata around the exact corner radius of the buttons, the fonts that you're using.
So you can build the interface and the basic how you want it to work in Figma and then upload it to V0 and then have it build from there?
You could. And at the same time, as somebody who's kind of an AI enthusiast, I would say, man, that would be a lot of work to be doing all that in Figma. I would almost consider doing the reverse of using something like V0 to talk through conversationally what I want the layout to look like and uploading inspiration and think about creating a Figma file because Figma is going to be more useful as we want to scale and use a big team to ensure we've got design consistency across the different features in our app. And so certainly you can start in Figma and then move in this direction, but that wouldn't be added.
But you could even go into, just to get out of the Figma thing, you go open up Keynote and just draw what you want and then give it that image and go, this is what I want it to look like.
Yeah, you can sketch it on a napkin for that matter. That's something that they were demonstrating over a year ago. So you definitely have the ability to give it just imagery of any type for inspiration.
Interesting. It's cool.
Very cool.
So that's v0.dev. And, if you're a panelist watching right now and you have something you think that we should show, this is kind of the advanced version of a Cochrane. So this is, we kick off one of these shows. If a panelist has something they want to show off, let us know and we'll find a time for you to jump in and show it. Thanks so much for showing us that, Ryan. We're really excited about it.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. By the way, we are taking your questions as always here on Office Hours. You can ask questions, chat about the questions, vote on the questions in Mokana, our kind of live Q&A system. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email, and then you can get into the system and participate in the normal sets. Let's see. Cindy Drozda, Erie, Colorado, is our reader today. So, Cindy, what's our first standard question today?
Our first question is from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Since it's Business Monday, how do you invoice customers, do inventory control, do receivables, and track expenses?
Alexander Knight's going to help you out, Cindy. Alexander?
I'm going to answer the first part of that with invoicing. For a number of years, I've just been using Stripe.com. I really like it for invoicing and collecting payments, and it'll do subscriptions as well. And I find it's very user-friendly, looks super slick, very clean, minimalist. You can do custom branding. It doesn't cost anything. There's no subscription service. They just take a percentage of the payment that you're charging, which is pretty industry standard. According to that, of course, there's other third-party. Now, I don't do anything super complicated, so for me, it works really well. They also have a very robust API, and of course, there are a lot of third-party invoicing platforms that have built their product on top of Stripe because of the API. So if you need something more robust, there's other services like freshbooks.com as one example, and lots of others that'll build off of that.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, it depends on how crazy you want to get. QuickBooks is probably one of the industry leaders, and we outgrew QuickBooks Enterprise. It just was getting too bogged down. So we looked for an alternative and explored the market and found NetSuite. So NetSuite is what they call, it's a proper ERP. So it does all of these. It does not only inventory management to the degree where you can have your Bluetooth guns where item comes into the loading dock, you hit, hey, I received 6 of these things, scan, and it gets put into the inventory, and it's all totally robust. It's running in the cloud, Oracle bot NetSuite to give you an idea as to who the players are. So there's about 41,000 people that use NetSuite. We were paying about $8,000 a month to use it, so it is not a cheap solution, and that's how we're able to invoice people. We're able to do the taxes, where automation for separate counties and things like that. And there's different plugins and modules that you can get for it to make it even tie in. Like we're using Avalara for our county tax stuff, so it's able to extract all that stuff in real time. You also have something simple like Zoho. If you're on the low end and you just want something simple, take a look at Zoho. Their line of products is pretty inexpensive and reasonable.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, Paul, my situation has been, I've been using it for about 35 years now. Quicken, I started using Quicken for my business years ago, and I wrote a separate invoicing package. Then the Quicken came out with home and business version. It's different from QuickBooks, and I might point out it used to be owned by Intuit. It is no longer owned by Intuit. They sold it off. So QuickBooks and Quicken aren't really from the same company anymore. They used to be both from Intuit. So I'm still using Quicken for business, and it does have the version I'm using has some business. It does invoicing. It does rental property trackings, which is something I think you have as well. So you might look into that. It organizes things by property, and it coalesces all your expenses and inventory in that manner. And it can do invoicing and invoice tracking, aging, and so on to track those unpaid invoices and paid invoices and the amount of time they've been outstanding, et cetera. So that's what I use for a simple equipment rental, and it served me well, and I don't want to change now, and my accountant always gives me grief because it's not QuickBooks, and it doesn't use the proper accounting methods for interface with his account, my CPA's account. So,
Ryan Rademan.
Guy brought up QuickBooks, and when he grew out of that, how he moved up into NetSuite. So +1 on NetSuite, that's one of 3 or 4 big cloud financial systems that folks will move up into, and he used the term ERP, which is appropriate in that case. Sage Intacct is another one that should be on folks' list. And if you want to kind of know what the other 2 are to round out the big 4, you would have Acumatica and you would have Microsoft Dynamics Business Central.
And in the regular Mukana chat, Chris Fonte says Xero, Xero is pretty great too, like FreshBooks on steroids. And we got a thumbs up from Ryan on that. So that's the landscape. Thank you for the question, Paul. Let's go to our next question.
Next one's from Douglas Carmichael. What would they be feeding the LED walls at an event like the Oscars with? Disguise servers?
Guy Cochran's going to help us out, Guy.
Yeah, it depends. I haven't been to see behind the scenes on this one, but typically you're going to see something like some analog way or Barco EC2, some heavy iron hardware to drive these things. The software could be anything from Unreal, Aximetry, could be something simple like Malumin. On the low end, maybe even MadMapper, something like that. It just depends on where what they're doing, how many screens, and if they need to modify those things. Because what the advantage of some of these things like Malumin and MadMapper is that you can have a curved wall and you can have multiple screens and multiple things going on at the same time. So that's where Resolume and some of these other software packages will come in handy to pin these things and contort them so that they look correct once they're broadcasted on these big, huge LED walls.
Alex Lindsay.
And disguise is probably one of the most common ones. We don't know. I don't know what they're using to put it on. It could be something custom. It could be something else. It's most likely something like disguise or above. As far as the solution, disguise is a pretty heavy duty. We've used it in a lot of events, big events, like when the budgets are in the millions. And disguise is the back end that makes all of that work, and it does a lot of the stuff the guy talked about, which is the mapping and the blending, and you have a lot of control over how it projects all of those things up. But in fact, it's probably the one that we've seen the most often. So without knowing what they're using in the Oscars, if I had to guess percentage wise, I would say disguise.
Actually, Robert Green in the discussion said the Oscars use Pi, Playback Innovations, for feed screens developed by a playback EVS op.
I don't. That might be the playback for the video, but I doubt it's the mapping to all of the. So it may be the playback to the video, but I'm guessing that it's not necessarily the entire control of the wall. Maybe. Yeah, Robert said he didn't know about the mapping, but yeah, I'm interested in playback innovations though.
Yeah,
so yeah, let's check that out.
They're playing at that level. They're worth looking at.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Douglas, that gave you the information you're looking for. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York asks, found a drawer full of iPads that are kneecapped at iOS 12.5. What sort of use can I make of these devices?
Ooh, lots of possibilities here. Jason Vaish is going to start off with a few.
All right. Well, a lot of answers, so I'll only give you one. My favorite thing to use these for is stuff like timing. So this is my very favorite clock. It's called Atomic Clock from Gorgie Timing, and it is the very best way to make sure that whatever you're doing is in sync, and you can do this with an iPod Touch. It does not really matter as long as you own the app.
I'm using one of those at the moment. Alex,
yeah, I'm a big fan of the same app. That's one of the most common things for me to put on old iPads, but also oftentimes web pages of for messaging or anything that I'm trying to drive there, timers if necessary. But the most popular one, Goring, the Atomic Clock is the one that is probably the most common for me to throw onto an older iPad.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, with Mimo Live, just with using a browser and then not showing the header, you can do some pretty elaborate buttons. So you could start streams, stop streams, do a two-up, whatever. So you don't need a powerful iPad to be able to do that. There's also Universe that could do a lot of the same type of things if you want more advanced control. Or you could just use it for Companion, because that's just basically a web browser as well, where you can open up some of the buttons and anything that you can imagine, you could control with BitFocus Companion.
Alex, you wanted to bounce back in?
Yeah, just to underline what Guy said, I didn't think about it, but there's no reason why the Mimo app that you have that I'm using on newer iPads couldn't work on older ones. It's just a button.
Let's go to our next question.
Next one's from Aaron Husledge in Durham, North Carolina. What are some good software tools to keep track of equipment for loan and rental?
Alex Lindsay, start us off here.
I'm just going to warn you that going into the loan and rental business it's a rough place to go. like it's just.
It sounds like the voice of experience.
Because we did it for 2 weeks one time. We were like, "Hey, let's do some rental," and then we were like, "We're never doing this again." So I'm just going to say it is, tracking it but keeping track of it's less about the gear and more about the people that rent and loan that you're loaning to and renting to. Just tracking all of the insurance and everything else. Because I'm doing a lot of stuff in Airtable, my thing will be like just build an Airtable and do something like that. It's not going to be cheap, but it's going to give you all the stuff that's there. Mickey says that Asset Tiger is another thing that you can do there. But I would be, it's just know that you're digging into deep water there. And it's not the tracking of the equipment. It's going to be tracking of people and the dealing with people and everything else. It only took us 2 weeks to realize we never wanted to be a rental company, and we stopped quickly.
I'm sorry, but I got to laugh. Ryan popped into the thing. What about replacing the clay pigeons in your skeet thrower with the old iPads? Anyway,
that's rough.
Courtney Gooden.
I did a little research on this, and I have friends, and I've dealt with people that do rental of AV equipment and so on, and it seems like there's a lot of consensus on using Rental Tracker, and they have this software that is designed specifically for doing like set lighting, audio, video, camera, Events Turing Edition. And then I looked at this section on RFID for tracking the equipment. And apparently they say this works. I do not have any experience with this software, but it says you can use this scanner to, if you have RFID tags and all your equipment that goes out, you can just go onto a stage and use the scanner and tell every piece of equipment that's on that stage. And when you're wrapping out to leave a stage, you can go in and scan it to make sure, hey, all the equipment is out of the stage, so that you can mass scan using these RF scanners. It seems to be iOS aimed at iOS, so I don't think it's cross-platform, but you can use it with these different scanners to use RFIDs to track each piece of equipment, and you can batch scan, a pallet full of equipment, and it'll record every single piece of equipment that's on that pallet, et cetera. So that seems very useful. I've never used anything like that. I don't know how well it works, but wow, what a concept to be able to go into a stage and see, where's my camera and have it located.
I've never seen RFID with range like that.
I haven't either, but that's what they say it does. I'm not sure how it can do that, but hey, there are stronger transmitters maybe that can ping a room. Amazon had that thing with the RFIDs where you just push your basket out of the store and it automatically records all the items in your basket. So it can be done at a distance.
Having done a lot of rental over the course of my career, I will say that, somebody said just, it's an easy way to make money. Well, if you haven't gone through I rented this out and it came back and it was not the same as when I rented it out. Now I have to spend all my time either trying to fix it or put it back together. All of your rental users won't be as careful as you are with your gear. So just be wary about that and budget wisely. I'm sure there's a lot of repair costs and redo cables that have been broken and things like that in the rental models for the people who succeed with things. Let's see. Oh, Alex wanted to get back in. Alex?
I was saying the one place we did rent that worked for us is that we increased the amount of the rental cost and then it included a free operator. So
you knew whose hands were on your gear at all times.
No one gets to touch the gear. So you can rent we had Ozos, which were $60,000 when we bought the first ones, $30,000 when we bought the second ones, and I think $7,500 for the last three. We would rent you an Ozo. We did rent Ozos out, but they came with an operator and a server, and you didn't touch anything. Like you just got to do. We brought it over, and it was still. We called it a rental, but it was really just a service.
Mickey mentioned in the chat, I rent out my gear with myself or my own operator.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're all in the same kind of thought here. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas asked the panel, what does it take to build and maintain a profitable professional media, film, or video production company?
Oh, nice small question. Alex, do you want to dive into it?
The first step is generally to spend 5 to 10 years doing media production for other people. So that here's the problem is that you want to start your business, either that or you're going to have to hire a bunch of people that actually know what they're doing, that have done this a lot, that there's this thing that we tend to call in events your horizon of events. And that is when you see something's going to be needed versus when it has to be done. And you want to push that horizon of events as far away from you as you can. And you can't do that if you don't know what's coming. So if you haven't done this 100 times, you're not going to look down the path and go, I can see that that's going to be a problem. We're going to solve it before it gets to us. And so you're either a wealthy person that's going to buy a bunch of stuff and hire a bunch of people, but those people all have to be good operators. If you're starting your own business, work for somebody else for a while. Like years, or volunteer and do lots of things for years. But it's really, I would not try to build a business around something that I'm going to start a business doing media production. I have seen people do that and they've almost all lost their shirt. So, and everything else, trying to do that because you get surprised. And when people pay for you to do this, they expect you to get it done. And they have a really, not a great sense of humor about things not working. There's lawsuits and people get upset and people don't want to pay and you put a bunch of money into it and now they don't want to pay you. And because you didn't execute, and so I think that I watch a lot of people think they're going to get into it early and they want to build their own business and they usually, getting the actual work done for a while is super important.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, it's a tough business to be in. I've worked for many commercial production companies over the years. And apparently the secret is a deep Rolodex, which we used to call, those little cards and little rotary things, or a deep contact list these days, because it's all about the people that you have to do the jobs. And you don't want to keep them on the payroll full time, because film production, especially commercial production, is transitory. It's, you may have, 4 projects in 1 month. You may have 1 project every 3 months, and you don't want to be carrying all those people on your payroll all at downtime, because production time and scheduling is, amorphous. It changes constantly depending upon the weather sometimes. So you want to have a good deep Rolodex of people that you trust to do the individual job positions, and then have your favorite person, and then your next favorite person, and your next favorite person, and with people you've worked with. Or if you run out of people that are not available for that particular production on your, let's say a cinematographer is not available, well, you go to your next in line, and if your next in line is not available, you ask your first guy for a recommendation of who he can recommend until you find someone who's available for your production schedule. And that tends to work fairly well. Also develop open accounts with the rental houses that rent production equipment, and make sure you have a good relationship with those people, so that they know, that they have deep inventory to handle whatever production you're going to be going into, and can deliver the equipment, and find out which people that are on your list in your Rolodex that have their own equipment, because a lot of cameramen own cameras, and whether they're good or not, or whether the client will agree to use that camera or not, is a question. So you have to kind of have both. And sometimes, the people that you hire can supplement your rental equipment with their own equipment, and it works out for you. But it's really who you know, not who you assemble, not how you assemble the company with production tools and personnel on the clock all the time. Keep it
Alex Lindsay. Oh, excuse me, Alex.
Yeah, and remember that again, how you build that Rolodex is to work on a bunch of shows with a bunch of people, and then you identify the people that you realize are moving really quickly, who know all the answers to the things that are there, who are not chaotic during the show, do not add more stress than what's there. And I think that this is a really good lesson when people are working on a show, is understanding how to be really a great person to be on the team, because all the things that Courtney just talked about. One of the things producers do is they're constantly cycling through people, and they're hanging on to the people that are great at what they do, and they're just not calling you back. They're not going to tell you that during the show. Like, they're not going to create an environment where you're not going to get another job from them. They're just going to be as nice as they can, unless you really screw it up and they have to remove you. If you're just not very good, if you show up a little bit late, if you're a little bit harsh, if you talk about politics, those kinds of things on set, they're just going to be smiling, and they're going to be nice. In fact, they might be nicer to you than anyone else, and then they're just never going to call you again. And and that's the way our industry works. But you have to think about that when you're on a team, because these teams are, as Courtney said, all transitory. The producers get to make this decision new every time they do a show, and they just pull people out and put other people in as needed.
Agree with all of that. I will say also, I think, once upon a time, I could expect the gear that I used and rented out in the field to last in a rental inventory for 5 or 10 years at, C-stands and things like that, never really go bad. Boy, that seems to me to have changed. There's so many lighter solutions now, and, who's renting C-stands for a quick run and gun shoot anymore? They really don't. You can see people out there with iPhones on little aluminum tripods and things like that. Now, not everyone, but I'm just saying the churn of gear, what's hot used to stay hot for a while in the rental inventories. Now it's so quick. If you get a couple of years out of a thing you invested in and can make a return on that, great. But it's likely they're going to ask for the next new thing, because there's just such churn in equipment now. And I think that's also going to affect that. Oh, by the way, if you have questions you want to put into the show queue, you can do that at askofficehours.global, info into your browser. That's askofficehours.global. You're watching, the QR code will come up. The QR code looks a little bit like, let me get my mouse over here, like this. You can grab it, and that'll jet you right into the system. You will able to put your questions in. They will get it vetted by someone and get right into the show as quick as you can. So snap that. Get askofficehours.global is the way you get into that system. Let's go to our next question.
From Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana, CES 2025. This company says repetitive trade show questions can be answered by their friendly robots with unique personalities. Would you consider using one? With a YouTube link.
Ooh, Ryan Rademan's going to dive in on this, Ryan.
So robotics, as they move into like an embodied and humanoid form, is something I'm plenty bullish on. But if we look just specifically at this model, I would not say that this is something that is what I envision. Right? Like
That's
them
a bit creepy.
taking on like the soft texture and
That
all
is
that.
terrifying.
They're kind of strange. Going in just a little bit of a different direction, though. Customer service agents are something that I've recently interacted with and been truly amazed by. So I was subscribed to a creator on Substack for many months that was not putting out content. I submitted a question to the chat saying like, hey, can I be refunded for this? It instantly said, yep, let me take a look. Okay, I've done that. Any more questions? I said, they haven't posted in like 6 months. Like, can you look into the back charges? And it stepped through and, created a case and escalated that and linked to the spot in the policy. So customer service agents, totally. Humanoid robots, totally. Is this convergence in this application one that I think is on the money? I'm not so sure about that. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm obsessed with that. That was very weird. Alex, what do you think?
I think it depends, like about what works. In general, I think people want to talk to a person, but in a lot of times, they don't want to interact with somebody. They don't want to. They're trying to figure something out. They want to have that answer right now, and they don't necessarily want to talk to a human being, or they don't want to wait for a human being to do it. I think you have to be very careful of where you put this and where you don't. When someone needs something that's a little bit warmer, they're going to need to talk to a person to make that decision. Whereas if they have a relatively basic question, they just want, like for instance, I'm again learning. When I'm learning an app, I have ChatGPT open. I have purposefully chosen not to have a human. And I sit there because I'm asking it a question all day for hours while I'm learning how to use an application. And so I've decided that that's a better solution than having a person sitting there waiting for me to ask for the next question. But there are times when I, ping somebody and I want to, hey, let's sit down and talk through what I'm doing here. And I need someone with experience to actually give me a decision or things like this. I think that generally what happens in corporations is they ask they put these in the wrong place. They go, oh, we could save a bunch of money if we put it everywhere, whereas it only probably makes sense in some cases, and so I think that's going to be the damage. I do think that we're building a head of steam towards people wanting human-only environments. Like because of the overuse of this, I think you're going to find social media and other things that are driven towards requiring you to prove that you're a person to talk to somebody. It's not here yet, but 3 to 5 years from now, there'll be whole environments that don't, it's like we don't serve those here. We don't serve those kind here from Star Wars. Like there's just going to be this strong distaste for this not because it's not useful, but because it's overused.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, the realistic-looking human robots are just creepy. I would not use them. But I remember the days, in the early days of conventions back at the NCC, National Computer Conference, they used to have these little marketing robots that would go around. And this one appeared in Rocky IV. Remember this guy? So they're not humanoid-looking. And they're used as kind of a sales tools, and they're not autonomous in any means. There's an operator that's driving them around the show floor. And it serves to attract attention, and they can have a little sign or a little a display on them that indicate who they are and what they're representing. And there's a guy standing off to the side that's very knowledgeable about the product that the robot's promoting, and people can ask it questions, and he has a little hidden wireless mic on him, and he's answering those questions discreetly from just around the people that are attracted to it. So it's just an attraction device to get people to come to your booth that you can put out on the show floor at a convention to get people to notice they may not stumble across your device or program or product. And this allows them to attract people to the booth with something unique and interesting, and attracts the kids are happy to see.
Next question.
John Fisher in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. How long until streaming technology can handle NFC, AFC championship post-game confetti without degrading? Go Birds!
Confetti and cameras. Alex.
The real issue is just how much bandwidth can we throw it at you to make this happen? So what happens is that we have two forms of compression. One is temporal compression. The other one is spatial compression. And the first one we try to do is temporal compression. So we say, okay, we're going to compress, but we have a keyframe here and a keyframe there. Usually they're about 60 to 90 frames apart. And then those are our keyframes at the whole image. And then we're going to try to predict. So these are P frames, there's a prediction, or bidirectional P frames, which are B frames that go in between. They look at both directions to make sure that we're looking at the next one. Everything's based on what changed from frame to frame to frame to frame, and only saving what changed. And so when someone's like me is sitting in front of a background here, nothing here is changing. So it's easy because it says all this stays the same. This stuff is changing a little bit. And so that's an easy thing to do. As we add more, if this stuff was all moving, LED walls, wind, all these other things start moving all the pixels. And as the more pixels you move, the less valuable all that predictive work is between those keyframes. And so the issue you get into is that you've decided, well, the budget that I have for this is 12 megs a second or 15 megs a second or whatever that number is. I don't have a budget for more than that. I'm out. So now you have to take resolution away from the spatial compression, and that means spatial compression just has to mash everything together. So the problem is that when you're streaming, you're typically at a constant bit rate, because if we are at variable bit rate and we said, oh, there's a lot of confetti, well, let's send more bits. A lot of people's set-top boxes or computers would freak out, but they would just start dropping frames because they weren't ready for that kind of change in that process. And so as a result, because you have that constant bit rate, that's the ceiling, and that temporal compression is being defeated by the confetti, you end up with this flattening, and it starts to break up. So I think that in some cases you'll see less of it in services like, for instance, Apple and Disney have, their upper limit on 4K is like 35 megs a second. They probably handle it better. I don't think I watched long enough to see the live stream of the NFC champions. I didn't watch once I knew who won a couple minutes before the end of the show. I was like, okay, we're done. And I moved on. So I don't know what the confetti looked like in YouTube. I bet you it wasn't as bad as some of the other ones, but it could have been because it's one of the most challenging things that you can compress is confetti. And it's just so many moving particles. They're not moving in a way. And we build slides that way, not with confetti, but usually with ocean shots and other things where we have a bunch of stuff. And we call them Widowmaker shots, which is just, they are these horrible, hard to compress shots. They've got reflections and they've got nothing happening the way it should, and they've got lots of mist, and those are the kind of things we use to test our encoders to try to figure out how to avoid this. But it's a problem, and sometimes people just go, well, that's the best we can do, because you'd have to change the entire infrastructure, and they're not ready to do that.
That was a really good explanation. Thank you for that. By the way, if you value what we do here every day, there are a couple of ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer if you want to become part of the team that makes all this possible, or you can donate at officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Next one's from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Have people had good experiences with ShareGrid?
Alex Lindsay.
I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I haven't used ShareGrid. I've gone to ShareGrid a couple times to do it, but I end up just going back to wanting to work with a company to do it. I think that as you start doing a lot of production, I think when you get started, you might want to do that. I know you're not getting started, Jack, but I'm just saying when you're trying to find a slightly cheaper way to do things, working with individuals with their hardware, to me, just would be, it's very hard. I think my experiences with eBay have been so up and down that the idea of doing this with rental gear has me kind of like, oh, that'd be a lot of work. So I have a tendency to the basement of what I do. It tends to be lens rental. Like, so lens rental, or what I think they bought borrow lenses. That was kind of like the base of what I would rent from, because it's a company and it's got a bunch of rules. They can be a little bit quirky as far as how they handle COIs and everything else. A lot of us, once we're doing production, we just want the local production. Almost every town. I mean, I know Phoenix specifically has 4 places that I rent from. We've definitely there's definitely places to rent in those areas. But so we've definitely gotten that kind of thing there. But those are built grip locations with cameras, and they've got a place to go, and we just find it a lot easier to manage that relationship than, and we know how to deliver a COI that they need. And I think when you deal with lots of individuals, I think it's a good idea, but it depends on what kind of production and how much time you have.
Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez III in Washington, D.C. asks, my 100-inch TV just isn't cutting it. I'm thinking 136-inch or higher should work nicely. What are some affordable LED wall displays that will fit my game day needs?
Courtney Gooden, start us off.
Move your chair closer to the screen and be happy with that 100. Or you could get, TCL, I think, makes a 115 it's kind of affordable. Once you jump up above the 100-inch level, you're starting to move into tens of thousands of dollars. And if you've really got a thick wallet, Samsung Onyx is a good way to go. You can get up to theater-size screens in 8K HDR. There's 4 of these in Los Angeles at the Culver Theater, and Alex can attest it looks pretty darn good. But they're about $250,000, and is that considered affordable? I don't know. It depends on how big your wallet is. You live in Washington, you may have billionaire buddies. Who knows?
It would make me feel bad to get a bad pixel on one of those. Alex.
Chauvet makes they're now getting into the LED business, but I think you're still probably talking 20 or 30 grand. View, V with a U with a little thing over the top. They were on our show a year or two ago, and they make their own version of this, but I think that they start at about $100,000 a unit. So you're talking about real money here once you start talking about LED walls. I think that you may find that a better solution once you go over 100 inches is really a projection. So, putting a projector back there, now you can scale it up to the distance that the projector can throw. I've done some tests at home with the projector that was at about 120 inches. And other than persuading my wife to be allowed to mount the projector, it was a pretty great experience. So a good high quality silvered screen with a projector looks pretty amazing at that size. It's not going to look maybe as good as a 1.5 mil LED wall, but 1.5 mil LED wall at 136 inches is probably $150,000 to $200,000. So there you go.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, Espresso Displays is introducing a 15-inch 4K display with a matching stand. Would you get a 15-inch or 17-inch size if it's going in a backpack? Link provided.
Alex, Lindsay, what do you think?
I think that's driven by the backpack. So how big can you put it in? And one thing, I just got one, not an Espresso one. I got a cheaper one for my backpack because I have to have something that I run. And the problem really is does the case that it has, does it have a hard case? Because it came with a soft case, and I was kind of like, okay, well, now I have to go invest in something that's a hard case because I got to put it into things. So I don't know. So now I'm going to Tap Plastics later this week to get them to make one for me so that I can put it on it, so then I can slide it into the soft case. And so that's the only challenge, is making sure that there's there's something that's going to protect the screen effectively in the backpack.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, Greg Gibson turned me on to this one that he picked up off of Amazon that's now got 2 screens so that it folds open, so it looks something more like this, where you can get a 15-inch and put it in your backpack, because that's the problem with my 17 inches, that it doesn't fit in my backpack. And so I have a bigger backpack that'll fit in, but I just don't like cruising around with that one. So for my smaller backpack, I'm looking at picking up this one just because now I have 2 15s in addition to the laptop screen. So I'd be looking at those and not at the Espresso. It's not this exact model that Greg has, but it's something similar. You could do a little research there on Amazon.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, the problem with all these portable screens is brightness, especially if you're saying in your backpack. If you're going to be using it outdoors, I still don't think even 450 is not enough brightness to use to be a good usable monitor in sunlight. You need to get up to about 1,000 nits 500. This one says it's 550, the one that you link to. Because to get good backlight, good bright backlights, you have to have an LED array behind the screen. And most of these portable screens that fold and go into your backpack are edge lit. So they just can't get the brightness to deliver in an outdoor situation.
Next question.
Here's one from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Do bath scales that connect to Apple's Health app work well? And do they collect data the same way the, quote, don't connect your TV to the internet, end quote, TV do?
Ryan Radelman is going to start us off this morning here.
Yeah, I've had the Why Things model, kind of the base model. It was about $100. I've had it for 7 or 8 years. And my experience with it has been pretty solid. I like the app itself. When it comes to the Apple Health integration, the main thing you'll note is that you need to open the Why Things app, and that's what must drive the push of that data set up into the Apple Health app. So if you're aware of that particular limitation, then you tend to not get frustrated by the way it synchronizes.
Jason Beisch.
Yeah, I'm aware of nothing that goes directly into Health app, and that is most of the problem. Just 2-3 days ago, I bought one of these. It was cheap. It was on Amazon, eTech City, and oh boy, I read that privacy policy, and it's going back. Unbelievably horrible.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I'd stick with Why Things. They follow a lot of the rules that are related to health. They're dealing with a lot of different health tools, and so they've been more careful about private data. You do need to open the app to pass it to Apple Health. I've been using the Why Things scale since it was made, so I think I've gone through a couple of them to upgrade just to get more of the features. But they work great. You do have to open the app and it'll update. But I use one every day.
Yeah, actually, I have one as well. I turn Bluetooth off if you don't want it reading on something. But yeah, it's nice to be able to have. And these are less expensive than they've ever been before. And it's really nice to be able, if you're on a goal weight thing, to track where you're going in tenths of a pound. Pretty useful. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asked the panel, any thoughts on this marketing pitch from CES? Quote, real-time adaptive solutions applied by Advanced HDR by Technicolor deliver a visual experience for live events that rivals film post-production quality, end quote, with a link.
That doesn't sound like marketing talk at all. Alex?
What Dolby did 5 years ago. Like, I don't know. I mean, like this is not anything new. I mean, I'm sure that's Technicolor's little thing, but they're acting like they just created the brand new thing. Dolby's been doing live color into HDR, into vision for a very long time now. not very long, but a solid 5 years. So I think that's, I don't think that's been that I'm not clear. So here's how this works in general is that we're passing, you can pass this data to the encoder, and the encoder is analyzing it on the way through on a frame by frame basis and really on a scene by scene basis and being converted there. And so that's already being done for Dolby Vision. So, I mean, it's great, and they should be producing HDR for these things. I'm just not sure that it's as revolutionary as they make it sound.
Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York. Forbes recently reported on GhostGPT, and with all these tools coming out at breakneck speeds, how can one guarantee the stuff generated is legit? I know nothing about programming. Where is the Turing test?
That's an interesting question, David. Ryan Raderman's going to help us out. Ryan?
The Turing test, I just have a funny anecdote on. Ray Kurzweil was interviewed last year at South by Southwest, and he came up with the concept of the singularity. And when they talked about the Turing test, he said none of these would pass it today because the Turing test is it indistinguishable from a human? But if you asked a human to write a poem that was, 1,000 words in another language, it could do it. But if you said, now do it again in another language, now do it again in another language, a human could not do that. And so the Turing test is not something these are passing because they're too smart.
Ooh, there's an interesting concept. We're going to be discussing this a lot over the course of time here because this is changing our world so rapidly. Alex Lindsay, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we're going to constantly see is there's a little bit of a trust but verify kind of process here where you just have to allow people, you're working with a lot of those things. Right now, I'm generally not using ChatGPT for anything that I am delivering to, as a product, so generally I'm using it as a way to think through things. Now, occasionally for previs or for other things, that's really where, for previs, for thought process, for brainstorming, for figuring out how to do things, not things that require it to be as clean as it would normally be in a normal environment. So even the apps that I've been building, I'm not trying to release them. I'm just trying to think, and I have little things that they do for me, but I'm not ready to hand them out to everyone because they're probably not clean enough to deal with people doing things with them other than working a way that I'm not working. But I would say that we're going to continue to see the AI tools get better and better, and I think that it is a mistake not to be using them. I have I don't know how it happened. I was talking to somebody about how many, I have windows and windows of AI tools opened all the time. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know how I got to a place where I'm using them all the time to just do little things like, oh, tell me about this, let me figure this out. And I think you want to get to a point where that's happening in your life to some degree. So that I think with Ghost, I think the issue here is that this is an uncensored AI chatbot. And so I think that the danger is really being able to give people a lot of information that they wouldn't normally have. There's a lot of things that if you go down a path with ChatGPT, it's like, whoa, let's not talk about, we're not going to go there. And it sounds like Ghost, and we're going to see AI quickly. There's going to be AI solutions that don't edit that out. That's the nature of things. I think that, so I think that's, trying to stop it from doing that is a fool's errand.
Ryan, you wanted to get back in?
Yeah, pushing the models to their limits and testing edge cases is always a learning experience. But I also have colleagues and friends who will try and test them for their knowledge of facts, right? Tell me what day of the week it was and what, what the weather was on this day in history when this historical event happened. And, oh, look, I got it to hallucinate. Well, you just learned something about an LLM and how they work. And so I don't think that the red teaming is a bad idea. But if one uses that to draw conclusions about overall kind of the effectiveness for the usefulness in their own profession and day-to-day work, they're going to end up in a rough spot competitively relative to their peers who are using it in a way that's productive.
Alex, you wanted to get back in?
Yeah, and this is the link that David Brady had. So this is Ghost. And we put this into the chat. How GhostGPT empowers cyber criminals with uncensored AI. And again, I think that's going to be. I used to think that how do we just stop people from being hackers, from doing all those things? But the reality is that makes everything else stronger. So hackers going down this path and people building resistance to them, and figuring out ways that, otherwise you would have people able to sneak through the system. And so this is constantly testing what we can and can't do. So I think it's healthy in a way, but we do have to stay aware. I know that the way I use AI primarily, the proof is in the pudding really quickly. It is working or it's not working. It's not something that I'm trusting that it has to be a certain way.
I wonder if there's an AI pen test out there working against the AI open GhostGPT. And then, it's probably happening a billion times a second because it's so fast that we never will find out about it. Next question. We can sneak one more.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is asking, what are the key elements of a successful, profitable YouTube channel focused on media production?
A nice small question. Courtney Gooden, how does he make $1 million on YouTube?
Yeah, I can't answer that. But one place to start is talk to the people who have, like Doug Johnson. You remember this guy who does a lot of videos on YouTube about production. Curtis Judd is another great source for information on reviews on professional audio gear. So that's a good place to start. Pose that question to them. They may have an answer for you.
Alex Lindsay.
There's a lot of it. The question is do you want to do something about something you're passionate about, or do you want to make something that's making a lot of money? And so there's lots of formulas to build a YouTube channel. You got to be ready to do it. But you look at there's a variety of tools that will let you see what's trending. And so you start building things against what's trending. You start to build those in a very patterned oriented. And there are YouTubers who, if you do some searches, will show you, hey, I started a new channel and I got to 1 million people in a year. And I didn't use any of the history that I had, or no one knew who I was, and I just built another one with faceless and everything else. And they'll just show you what that pattern is. I think I'm more interested in building something that I'm passionate about rather than just something that just churns. And so I just getting subscribers, I'm not sure is the end result that I'm looking for there. So, but I think that you can find plenty of ways to do patterns. I think that's you look for what's trending. You build things that are short and concise that fit within that model, and you can probably build something that has a lot of followers.
That's Office Hours for today. Thank you so much for spending a part of your day with us. Don't forget, the producers who produce this show, that's everybody out there who's asked a question. We truly appreciate your sending your questions in, because without that, we don't have a show. And you constantly astonish us with the depth and breadth and intelligence of your questions. So thank you for being part of what we do here every single day. Also, to our panelists who come in and volunteer their time to talk about what they've learned through often years, decades of professional experience, and give you practical advice whenever we can. We appreciate all the people who've been panelists here over the years, because a lot of panelists have helped me learn more than I can help somebody else. And that's a great continuing process. And our back-end crew, the people who are unseen in the background, all over the world, who are sitting at computers or iPads or something else, helping to switch the show, and the people who do not do the daily show, but who are in the background helping us structure the show, figure out what guests are, all the back-end website stuff and everything else. It's a huge community, and we appreciate each and every one of you for your contributions to what we do here every day. The Telectraversal today, we traveled 13,000 miles. That's 21,000 kilometers, or 101 million bananas for scale, not for sale. We can't sell that many bananas. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all here tomorrow.
This banana, however, is for rental.
Buy my banana.
Yeah. Oh dear, the bananas are going to a rental model. I knew that. What is it that's really expensive now?
Plantains?
No,
we're
not
going to
plantains.
a banana subscription
bananas.
model, because that's the whole way the industry is.
Oh yes, the banana subscription model.
I'm sorry, bananas are now only in the cloud, and you need to have them every month. That's it.
That adds a 10x value to Office Hours.
But do they have RFID built in?
It's eggs. Eggs are going nuts everywhere in America. So
Bird flu.
subscription eggs I can see coming.
You know what a real subscription egg is? A chicken in your backyard.
There you go.
Chicken with a mask on it.
You put chicken feed in, eggs come out. This is great. Again, thanks everybody on the panel. Appreciate you being here.